Kharge, Attorney General for India, Mr. Praveen Parikh, President, Supreme Court Bar Association, Mr. Shekhar, Vice President, Ms. Aishwarya Bhati, Secretary, our very distinguished senior advocates, Mr. Soli Surabji, Mr. P.P. Rao, Solicitor General, Mr. Ranjit Kumar, Additional Solicitor Generals, distinguished lawyers, distinguished friends, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I extend my warm greetings on 68th Independence Day. Independence Day is a day of celebration, a day to take pride in the achievements, a day to commemorate the founding fathers who sacrificed their lives to give us what we are seeing today, independence. But this day also gives us an opportunity to reflect upon the deficiencies and the path we have to follow. It was on 28th January 1950 that the Supreme Court sat for the first time with 8 judges, and at the end of the first year, there were 690 matters. Today, we have a strength of 31 judges, including Chief Justice. At the end of the year, more than 65,000 cases are pending. This is peanut in what we are seeing all over the country so far as pendency and areas of cases are concerned. For effective delivery of justice, not only it is required that justice is delivered at an early date, but also it has made itself available to the most vulnerable section of the society. As a head of the judiciary, my heart feels pain when I find that criminal justice system has given a tremendous suffering, pain, exploitation of human rights, and deprivation of liberty. I was shocked to learn that there are 2 lakh criminal trials pending all over the country which are more than 5 years old, and 40,000 criminal trials are pending which are more than 10 years old. It's curious and tragic paradox that our prisons are housed more by under trial prisoners than by convicts. If the figures that has been given by National Crime Bureau is correct, in almost all central prisons, more than 50% are under trial prisoners, and in district prisons, more than 72% are under trial prisoners. The process itself has become a punishment. As a head of the judiciary, I cannot feel more pain than that. The question is, who is at fault? Are the hands of judges that have contributed to this misery, or there are other forces they have led to this problem? Every one of you know, because most of us are concerned with the justice delivery system, that we have about 20,000 judges, right from the Chief Justice of India to the lowest cadre of, say, Munsif Magistrate. Of them, more than 19,000 are appointed by the state governments because they relate to subordinate judiciary. rest of courts, 1,000 or so, even less than that, 906 as High Court judges and 31 Supreme Court judges, as per the existing constitutional provision, it is being handled by the judiciary. Of that, so far as Supreme Court is concerned, of the 31 judges, 30 judges are functioning. Of the High Court judges, about 266 vacancies exist as of now, some of which have not been forwarded by the concerned Chief Justices of the High Courts. Some of them are lying with the Chief Ministers or Governors of this state. Quite a few of them are lying with Ministry of Law and Justice, and some of them are lying with the Supreme Court. So as regards this vacancy, some fault may lie with the judiciary. But you'll be shocked to learn that in 1972, conviction rate happened to be 62.5%, whereas in 2012, it has gone down to 32%. What is the reason? Judges do not collect evidence. Judges do not furnish proof. Judges do not handle prosecution. It is the investigating officer who produce false proofs, who ignore material evidence, who overlook the vital materials. They either over-implicate or under-implicate. A robbery is implicated as theft, a rape is implicated as molestation, a kidnapping is registered as elopement. Conversely, a molestation is registered as rape, a theft is registered as robbery, and elopement is registered as kidnapping. The result is there is no legal evidence for sustaining the conviction. The police does not have the scientific tools available with them for investigation. They can't handle cyber crimes. They are mostly influenced by the people where he serves in this station because he wants to stay at a particular station. Then there are deficiencies in prosecution. Then the legal assistance is not appropriate. As a matter of fact, I am reminded of the statement made by our President of India, His Excellency Shri Pranab Mukherjee, while speaking last year somewhere in Guwahati, that delay in justice delivery system is treated as an opportunity by the lawyers, whereas it is a blemish. A prolongation of litigation, a prolongation of disputes neither help the legal profession, nor help the judges, nor help the system. It is therefore essential that we come out of old thinking, of delaying tactics, and adopt the means which helps in quick delivery of justice. I'm sure, since Law Minister is here, and he's taking keen interest in ensuring that the justice is delivered fast and as quickly as possible. I'm sure he will take care in ensuring that either case judge ratio or judge population ratio, whatever is appropriate as per the guidelines framed by NCMS and other agencies, is applied, and technology is provided. He also happens to be Telecom and IT Minister. This is high time that he provides tools of technology to police, tools of technology to prosecution, tools of technology to judicial officers, and for that, adequate measures are taken to ensure that all of us together take the things forward and ensure that justice is delivered as fast as may be possible, and preferably we set a goal that no trial exceeds 3 years and no appeal from a criminal trial takes more than 1 year. I'll be very happy. Of course, I'm not going to head the judiciary for a long time, but that will be the happiest day of my life if I see that criminal trials are concluded within 3 years. Under trials, do not feel that process under which they have been arrested is by itself a punishment. As constitutions are made, they grow. Our constitution accommodates natural process of discussion and evolves into change without demarcating expressly the separation of judiciary, executive, and parliament. The constitution makers ensured that all the three vital organs of the state operate in their respective fields without encroaching upon the other's domain and area. I'm sure all of us, the people in judiciary, the people in executive, the people in parliament are matured enough to have mutual respect for each other and ensure that each organ is permitted to work within its sphere unhindered by any extraneous influence or unconstitutional means. If we are able to do that, I think we'll be able to achieve the constitutional goals. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Thank you, sir. May I now request you to please distribute gifts. May I request the Chief Justice of India to please distribute gifts to the children, and I request our President, sir, to kindly accompany him, the Law Minister to kindly accompany him. We are privileged to have the young children here. Their names are Bashir.
Loja, who is making good breakfast, is very important to the administration of justice. May I request Miss Ryan to present a bouquet of flowers to her.
Ma'am, please, ma'am, please, ma'am, please, ma'am. Thank you.
It is now my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Supreme Court Bar Association. We wish to thank the head of our family, and before that, the First Lady of our family. We are grateful for your presence this morning, ma'am. We are grateful for the presence of the Honorable Chief Justice of India. We are extremely indebted to the Law Minister, Union Minister for Law and Justice, Information and Technology to be with us. And we wish that this becomes the first of many visits for you here as the Minister, sir. I wish to thank the presence of the Honorable Judges of the Supreme Court of India who have come and spared their valuable time to be with us this morning. I acknowledge and thank the presence of our former judges, Mr. Deepak Verma. We are grateful for the presence of the learned Attorney General for India, Mr. Mukul Rohde, for the presence of Mr. Solicitor General for India, Mr. Daljeet Kumar. We are grateful for the presence of all the law ministers in great strength here with us this morning. We are grateful for the Paras Pathars of our profession, Mr. Sorabji and Mr. Rao. It's always a pleasure to have you to bless us, sir. We are also extremely indebted for the wonderful team of CRPF, which is led by Shri Durga Prasad. He is the commandant of 5th Battalion of CRPF. And while thanking him, I do wish to make one point that today is a day that all the speakers have spoken about. But one thing is, we have to remember the fallen soldier. We are sitting here in the Temple of Justice. We are dealing with the cases of fallen soldiers also. We have to deal with it in a manner that is befitting the dignity of the soldier of this country. And I also wish to thank